There comes a moment in your life when silence says more than 1,000 words, when walking away is louder than screaming back, and when letting go becomes your loudest act of strength. You don't always get closure. You don't always get justice, but you always get a choice to carry pain or to carry peace. And that choice starts with detaching emotionally, not because you're heartless, but because you finally had enough. You gave your all. You fought for people who wouldn't even hold the line for you. You stayed loyal to souls who never knew what loyalty felt like. And the deeper you loved, the deeper it cut when they turned cold. But hear me now. Your healing begins the moment you stop chasing people who only remember you when they need you. You don't need validation from those who made you feel invisible. You need clarity. You need strategy, not to win them back, but to win yourself back. Because when your emotions no longer control your moves, your power becomes unshakable. This is not about revenge. This is about redirection, about detaching with grace and moving with intelligence. Because you're not here to survive, you're here to elevate. People will tell you that you're cold the moment you stop reacting, stop begging, stop explaining yourself to those who never cared to understand you in the first place. But emotional detachment isn't coldness. It's clarity. It's the point in your life where your soul gets tired of breaking itself into pieces just to fit inside someone else's comfort. You finally realize that peace isn't found in fixing things that were never built on love or respect. It's not bitterness, it's wisdom. When you detach emotionally, you begin to see things for what they are, not for what you hoped they would be. You stop romanticizing red flags. You stop begging for consistency from people who thrive in confusion. You stop trying to water relationships that only grow when it benefits them. You begin to breathe again, to think again. And most importantly, you begin to see again. Because you were never blind. You were emotionally invested. And emotional investment can blur the sharpest truths. That's the danger of loving with no boundaries. When your heart drives every decision, you excuse disrespect, tolerate silence, and believe apologies without change behavior. But when you detach emotionally, you create space for logic to speak louder than pain. You don't stop loving people, you stop losing yourself, trying to make them love you right. You stop crying over people who only show up when it's convenient. You stop chasing what keeps escaping. You stop overthinking every text, every silence, every little shift in their tone. Suddenly, your peace matters more than their approval. Suddenly, your time becomes sacred. You understand that being accessible to everyone is how you lose yourself. And the truth is, not everyone deserves access to your emotions. Detachment is how you protect your soul while still choosing to love from a distance. It's not walls, it's wisdom. You learn that some people confuse access with entitlement. Just because they had a place in your past doesn't mean they deserve a seat in your future. Detachment helps you break those emotional contracts you signed out of guilt, fear, or loneliness. You begin to differentiate between connections built on depth and attachments built on need. You become the observer instead of the absorber. You no longer take every mood personally. You stop fighting invisible battles in your mind. You stop overanalyzing their silence because now you recognize that their behavior was never a reflection of your worth. Detachment teaches you that love without respect is just manipulation. Attention without intention is a trap. And energy without reciprocity is theft. So now you reclaim yourself, not with anger, but with awareness. Not with revenge, but with redirection. When you were emotionally entangled, you mistook chaos for passion. You thought struggle meant strength. But detachment opens your eyes to how peace should feel. It's not boring. It's not empty. It's safe. It's solid. It's quiet enough for you to hear your own voice again. And when you hear yourself, you realize how long you've been silenced. By your fears, by your trauma, by people who didn't want you to see your worth. Detachment isn't walking away from love, it's walking away from illusion. You finally understand that love doesn't hurt. It doesn't confuse. It doesn't keep you up at night wondering what you did wrong. Real love calms you. Real love confirms you. Real love meets you, not makes you chase. That's the clarity emotional detachment gives. It helps you unlearn what pain taught you to accept. You start to move differently. You talk less and listen more. You watch how people treat you when they don't need anything. You stop explaining your value and start embodying it. Detachment shifts your identity from someone who proves they're enough to someone who knows they are. You no longer fear losing people. You fear losing yourself by holding on. And that shift, that's where your power starts. Because you realize that not everyone who leaves is a loss. Some people are exits. Detachment isn't giving up, it's choosing yourself in environments that never chose you. And when you make that decision, your life begins to change. Not because everything around you becomes perfect, but because you finally become unavailable to what drains you. You stop dancing for attention. You stop over-explaining. You stop showing up for those who wouldn't cross the street for you. And that's when your vision sharpens. That's when your soul heals. Emotional detachment grants you the kind of strength that doesn't need to shout. You become calm in chaos. You become still in noise. You become unmoved by pettiness. Not because you don't feel anymore, but because your feelings are no longer tied to outcomes you can't control. You start letting people think what they want while you protect your energy. You no longer beg to be understood. You're too focused on your evolution. You realize peace is not passive. It's power. It's intentional. It's choosing to stop bleeding in places that never offered you a bandage. So when people ask why you've changed, you simply smile. Because they don't know the wars you had to stop fighting just to breathe again. They don't know the nights you spent trying to save what was never meant to be yours. But you know, and now you're free. Every time you react without thinking, you hand over your power. You give the world a remote control to your emotions. And anyone who pushes the wrong button gets to dictate your mood, your energy, your peace. But life's not about reacting. It's about responding. Reaction is emotional. It's quick. It's blind. But response is strategic. It's measured. It's deliberate. When you react, you defend. When you respond, you decide. And there's a difference between defending your pride and protecting your peace. You don't need to match the energy of every insult, every slight, every cold shoulder. Sometimes silence is the smartest move. Sometimes walking away is louder than any comeback. And sometimes letting someone believe they got to you while you stay unbothered is the greatest strategy of all. Because you don't win in chaos, you win in composure. You begin to realize that not every battle is worth fighting. Not every attack deserves a counterattack. Most people don't argue for truth, they argue for control. And when you react, you feed their fire. You hand them exactly what they wanted. Your focus, your frustration, your flame. But when you respond with strategy, you flip the script. You evaluate, not escalate. You ask yourself, what outcome do I actually want from this moment? You become the chess player, not the pawn. You learn how to step back without stepping down. You stop wasting energy proving your point to people committed to misunderstanding you. That's the power of a controlled mind. You start to understand that your energy is currency, and not every situation is worth your investment. You're no longer just responding to the moment, you're thinking 10 moves ahead. In a world that teaches you to clap back to show strength through retaliation, strategy becomes your secret weapon. You move with intention instead of impulse. You don't react to disrespect. You let people reveal who they are and you adjust access accordingly. Some people don't deserve confrontation. They deserve distance. Some conversations don't need closure. They need silence. Because the moment you make peace your priority, you stop performing for people who crave drama. You don't need to explain your worth to anyone who questions it. You don't need to lower your standards just to keep the peace. You raise your strategy to protect it. Emotional intelligence is knowing when to speak and when to observe. It's knowing that your response isn't just about the moment. It's about the message you send to yourself. Are you teaching yourself to react emotionally or to rise above strategically? When you respond with strategy, your patience becomes power. You no longer chase validation. You no longer argue to be heard. You recognize that sometimes the most powerful response is no response at all. Because you're not in the business of convincing people who've already made up their minds. You're in the business of protecting your growth, of keeping your future clear of unnecessary chaos. And the truth is, the people who try to pull you into drama are the ones most threatened by your peace. They want you to react so they can say, see, you haven't changed. But when you respond with strategy, you become untouchable. You rise above the petty. You see the trap and you don't step in it. That's not weakness. That's wisdom. That's knowing who you are, what you want, and what you're no longer willing to tolerate. Responding with strategy doesn't mean you let people walk over you. It means you don't let people pull you down. It means you know when to speak with power and when to walk away in silence. Not every disrespect needs a reaction. Some deserve consequences. And your greatest consequence can be indifference. Because when people can't trigger you, they lose control over you. You start to notice how many situations used to drain you because you felt the need to always defend, to always prove, to always fix. But now you're strategic. You don't just speak, you calculate. You don't just move, you align. And this shift, it saves you. It keeps you grounded. It keeps your goals intact. Because no one climbs a mountain while constantly turning around to argue with people in the valley. If you want elevation, you need discipline. You need strategy. You train yourself to pause, to breathe, to analyze. You become slow to anger, not because you're weak, but because you're wise enough to know that temporary emotions create permanent damage. You don't react just because you're triggered. You take a step back and ask, is this response going to serve my peace or sabotage it? You don't give people power over your narrative. You stay grounded in who you are. And this mindset shifts everything. You become a leader of your own life, not a follower of your impulses. People start to notice that you don't flinch under pressure, that you don't crumble when provoked. And that's when they start respecting you, even the ones who once tried to break you. Because responding with strategy is the art of mastering yourself. And once you've mastered that, no storm can shake you. Once you've mastered that, no storm can shake you. They don't steal your peace all at once. They take it in small pieces. One guilt trip, one ignored boundary, one silent treatment at a time. Until you wake up exhausted, not from what you're doing, but from who you're doing it around. That's when it hits you. Your energy is currency, and you've been spending it on overdraft accounts, people who keep taking but never pour back in. Every phone call that leaves you drained, every relationship that makes you question your worth, every conversation that ends in confusion instead of clarity, that's a transaction. And you've been going broke emotionally trying to fund connections that were never mutual. It's time to stop. Time to check the balance in your soul. Time to realize that your energy isn't just valuable, it's sacred. And if you keep giving it away without intention, you'll have nothing left for what really matters. You were not made to survive off scraps of love. You were not created to exist in circles where you have to beg to be heard, chase to be seen, or shrink to be accepted. Every time you stay in a space that drains you, you delay the healing that's trying to reach you. Every time you invest in people who wouldn't even lift a finger for you, you're robbing yourself of joy, clarity, and purpose. Some of the people you're loyal to are the very ones bleeding your spirit dry, but you don't see it until you pause. Until you pull back and ask, what am I really getting from this? When you start looking at your energy like money, you start spending it wisely. You stop handing it out just because someone asked for it. You start asking yourself, what's the return on this? And if the return is stress, confusion, or feeling less than, then it's too expensive. There's a difference between support and sacrifice. Supporting someone doesn't mean setting yourself on fire to keep them warm. That's not love. That's self-destruction. You weren't born to be a lifeline for people who refuse to swim. You weren't made to be the battery that powers everyone else while your own life flickers. And the truth is, most people won't tell you when you're overextending yourself because they benefit from your exhaustion. That's why boundaries aren't selfish, they're necessary. Saying no doesn't make you rude. Protecting your peace doesn't make you mean, it makes you wise. Because once you realize your energy fuels your focus, your health, your destiny, you stop spending it on people who only show up when they're empty, expecting you to fill them, but disappear the moment you're in need. The hardest lesson is learning that some of the people you love are not meant to stay close. Love them, yes. Forgive them, yes. But keep them in a place where they no longer have access to your peace. Why? Because some people are storms pretending to be shelter. They bring chaos wrapped in charm. They bring drama disguised as love. And they take and take and take until one day you feel like a ghost in your own life. That's not what your soul was built for. You were made for impact, for elevation, for peace. And peace is expensive. It costs letting go of the familiar. It costs disappointing people who got too comfortable with your self-betrayal. But once you start conserving your energy for things that grow you, love you, and push you forward, your life begins to bloom, not because everything is perfect, but because you are no longer depleted. Think of what you could do if you redirected your energy, all the time you spent explaining yourself to people who never cared to understand. What if you used it to build something that lasts? All the effort you poured into proving your worth, what if you channeled that into believing it instead? The peace you've been begging for from others starts to grow the moment you stop expecting them to give. You realize that peace was never outside. It was buried under all the draining interactions you mistook for connection. And the more you withdraw from what empties you, the more you have to invest in what fulfills you. You start attracting people who respect your time, who don't need to be chased, who match your energy without being asked. That's the return you've been looking for. That's what happens when you stop giving your best to what deserves your distance. So now you walk differently. You listen to your gut before your guilt. You ask yourself, does this energize me or deplete me before every yes? You choose presence over people pleasing. And you no longer chase love, you align with it. Because when you treat your energy like currency, you don't waste it proving your value. You live in a way that shows it. You protect it, you nurture it, and you don't apologize for it. You understand now? Your energy fuels your purpose. It feeds your dreams. It shapes your future. And you don't have time to go broke emotionally trying to keep the wrong people comfortable. You've done that for too long. Now it's time to rise quietly, powerfully, and with all the energy you've finally reclaimed. You keep wondering why you feel stuck, why no matter how hard you try, something in your life still feels heavy. You carry it in your chest, in your sleep, in your silence. But what you're feeling isn't failure. It's weight, and not the kind you were meant to carry. See, some people, some memories, some habits are like anchors. They keep you tied to a version of yourself you've outgrown. You want to elevate, but you're still clinging to what broke you. You want peace, but you're addicted to the chaos that felt like home. You want clarity, but you're tangled in the fog of people who never saw your worth. That's the truth you can't ignore anymore. You don't rise by holding on. You rise by letting go. And the moment you release what was never yours to carry, your wings, remember, they were built to fly. Letting go isn't weakness, it's wisdom. It's realizing that love shouldn't feel like war and loyalty shouldn't feel like chains. Sometimes the very people you're trying to save are the reason you're sinking. And sometimes the version of yourself you're trying to protect is the very thing blocking your breakthrough. You've been dragging that pain, that grudge, that guilt for far too long. But pain is not proof of loyalty. You don't have to keep bleeding just because you've always bled. You deserve joy that doesn't confuse you, love that doesn't leave you questioning your worth, peace that doesn't disappear when someone else's mood shifts. But you'll never touch that life until you unclench your fists and stop holding on to what's already let go of you. Elevation demands release. It demands space. It demands you. Be brave enough to choose freedom over familiarity. You don't grow in comfort. You grow when you stretch, when you unlearn, when you walk away. And walking away doesn't always mean leaving someone physically. It means leaving behind who you had to become just to survive around them. You might have had to shrink, to silence your voice, to ignore your intuition. But now it's time to choose you, fully, boldly, quietly if you must. Because not everything deserves a dramatic exit. Some things deserve your silence, your absence, your detachment. That's not revenge. That's respect for yourself, for your future. You've already seen what happens when you hold on too long. You forget your strength, you confuse pain for purpose. But when you let go, when you release what was never rooted in truth, that's when everything starts to shift. The weight leaves your shoulders, the noise clears, and suddenly the air feels lighter. People will ask why you've changed, why you're not as available, why you don't show up like you used to. But they won't remember the nights you cried yourself to sleep, wondering why love always felt like loss. They won't recall how you gave pieces of yourself to keep things whole. They only see the change. They don't know the cost. So stop explaining your evolution. Stop apologizing for your healing. You're allowed to grow beyond people. You're allowed to evolve past environments that no longer inspire you. And if that makes others uncomfortable, let it. Because you didn't fight this hard to stay in places that keep you small. You're not bitter. You're better. Better because you finally stopped watering what wouldn't grow. Better because you stopped setting yourself on fire just to keep old versions of your life warm. That's not coldness, it's clarity. Letting go doesn't erase your past. It just stops it from controlling your next step. It means you no longer carry conversations that never brought closure. You stop replaying moments that left you broken. You stop waiting for people to say what you already knew in your gut. Some people never apologize. Some situations never resolve. And that's okay. Peace isn't found in the answer, it's found in the release. You forgive for yourself. You walk away without needing them to understand. You stop circling back to places that always left you dizzy. Because the truth is, you already know what's behind you, and you already know what it costs to stay there. The real question is, are you ready to find out who you could become if you stopped carrying what was never meant to come with you? That's where elevation begins. And when you finally let go, really let go, something beautiful happens. You don't just rise, you remember. You remember who you were before the heartbreak, before the betrayal, before the self-doubt took root. You remember what it felt like to laugh without fear, to dream without limitation, to love yourself without apology. And that version of you, the one you buried to keep others comfortable, is still there, waiting for you to stop dimming your light, waiting for you to stop explaining your worth, waiting for you to stop waiting on others to choose you, because the moment you choose yourself is the moment you begin to fly. And no anchor, no person, no past has the right to hold you back from that anymore. You've walked through fire. You've poured yourself into people and places that never filled you back up. You've held on to pain thinking it was love, thinking it would turn into something it never could. You've reacted out of hurt, stayed out of fear, and drained your spirit just trying to be enough for people who couldn't see your worth. But the truth is, what you've been through wasn't meant to destroy you, it was meant to teach you. Teach you how to choose peace over chaos, silence over noise, and growth over comfort. It was meant to show you that the most powerful version of you doesn't come from holding on. It comes from letting go. From detaching emotionally, not because you stopped feeling, but because you finally started healing. You've learned that your energy is your most valuable currency. And not everyone can afford you. Not everyone deserves the access they once had. You've seen how emotional exhaustion comes from overgiving, over-explaining, and overstaying. And now you know protecting your energy isn't selfish, it's sacred. It's wise. It's survival. You've come to understand that love is not supposed to break you, that support should never feel like sacrifice, that being there for someone doesn't mean being buried by them. You can love someone deeply and still decide that your peace matters more than their chaos. And that's okay. That's strength. That's strategy. Because you're not here to prove anything anymore. You're here to preserve what's left of you so you can build something better from it. You don't need to react to everything anymore. You found power in your pause, in taking a breath instead of swinging back, in holding your silence when you could tear someone down with words. You've grown. You've matured. And now you respond not to be right, but to be wise. You're learning to choose your battles, to ask yourself if it's worth your energy, your peace, your presence. And most times, it's not. Because your peace isn't loud. It doesn't need to make a scene. Your peace is strategic. It's knowing that the best clapback is elevation. The best revenge is silence. The best answer is growth. And you don't need to shout to be heard anymore. Your actions speak volumes. You don't need to defend who you are anymore. Your boundaries say enough. You've come to see that holding on is not always strength. Sometimes it's fear. Fear of change, fear of loneliness, fear of starting over. But the moment you let go of what anchored you, the moment you finally drop the weight, you begin to rise. And what's waiting for you on the other side of letting go is everything you thought you had to chase in others. Peace, clarity, confidence, wholeness. And you don't have to beg for it. You don't have to chase it. You become it. Because healing isn't about what they do. It's about what you choose. You choose to walk away even when it hurts. You choose to protect your energy even when it's misunderstood. You choose to love yourself enough to stop giving your best to what drains you. And that choice, that's when you take your power back. This journey of emotional detachment, strategic movement, energy protection, and personal elevation isn't easy. It's lonely at times, it's quiet, and it's often misunderstood. But it is the road to your highest self. And the more you walk it, the more you realize you were never too much. You were just giving too much to people who gave too little. You were never hard to love. You were just surrounded by people who couldn't love deeply. And now you see the difference. Now you recognize what real love, real peace, and real connection feel like. And you will never again settle for what drains you. You will never again lower your voice to be heard by people who never listened in the first place. You will never again shrink to fit into places that were never built for your growth. The past taught you how to break, but this season, it's teaching you how to build, how to rebuild your confidence, rebuild your standards, rebuild your soul, brick by brick, day by day, quietly, intentionally, and without apology, because you're no longer surviving, you're rising. You're no longer hoping they'll see your value. You know it. And from this moment forward, you no longer wait for people to choose you. You choose yourself. Over and over again, with love, with grace, with purpose. And that choice will open doors you never imagined. It will protect you from cycles you thought you were destined to repeat. It will elevate you to places the old version of you could only dream of. Because freedom, peace, and power all begin the moment you decide enough is enough. Thank you for walking through this message with your heart open. Thank you for having the courage to look at yourself in the mirror and say, I deserve better. And may you never again settle for anything less than the peace you were born to carry, the strength you've earned, and the love you've always deserved. Keep rising, keep growing, and most of all, keep choosing you. God bless you. Stay strong, stay grounded, stay focused. Your elevation is already in motion.